Rachel Reeves' economic growth strategy is a recipe for disaster which will inevitably leave the UK in lockstep with the EU, and lagging behind the United States, a banking expert has warned. Bob Lyddon also believes the Chancellor is planning to plough cash into Labour seats in a classic example of what he called pork barrel politics. Mr. Lyddon, the founder of international banking consultancy Lyddon Consulting Services, was commenting on a package of investment reforms unveiled by Ms. Reeves on Friday which she argued was critical to Labour's mission for growth. The announcement, intended to pave the way for her keynote speech on Wednesday, is the latest phase of the government's National Wealth Fund, an £8 billion public investment initiative aimed at driving growth, fostering green industries, and boosting employment. It goes hand in hand with the newly created Office for Investment, intended to oversee the strategic deployment of funds, attract private investment, and coordinate efforts to maximize the economic and social benefits of public spending. However, Mr. Lyddon is deeply skeptical about both, and equally unconvinced by Ms. Reeves' latest idea. He told Express.co.uk, "We must treat with derision the idea that Labour and SNP mayors in West Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, West Midlands, and Glasgow know anything about business investment rather than about maxing out on spending. They have limited or no business experience and will delight in the popping up of huge, new, and shiny public assets within their domains, no matter that the assets fail to deliver long-term economic benefit." Mr. Lyddon was also scornful of the Chancellor's credentials, asking, who would now trust Rachel Reeves or any of her sidekicks, or any Quango pact with Labour worthies, to pick the right sectors of the economy to invest in, and to support businesses that succeed? The working example in the UK for this type of business investment by Labour councils is Robin Hood Energy in Nottingham. The company, launched in 2015, was a not-for-profit energy company which folded 5 years later, racking up millions of pounds in debt in the process. Mr. Lyddon said, "Outside the UK it is Stalin's White Sea Canal, a white elephant connecting nowhere to nowhere." Describing Ms. Reeves' vision of a partnership with regional mayors as another iteration of the tried-and-tested formula called pork barrel politics, he warned, "It will be a rerun of Gordon Brown's private finance initiative, which made schools and hospitals pop up in Labour areas at massive and continuing cost to all UK taxpayers. And in parallel Gordon Brown's light-touch regulatory approach to the former building societies who were helping with the commercial and residential rebuilding of the UK's Rust Belt. Anyone remember Halifax Bank of Scotland, Rachel Reeves ought to, Northern Rock, Bradford, and Bingley, and Alliance and Leicester? The rest of us are only just finishing with paying off the bill." The new schemes envisaged by the government were commonly referred to as rentier business models, Mr. Lyddon said. He explained, "If you want to get from A to B, you must use the bridge and you must pay the toll, or rent." An economy in which such models predominate runs itself increasingly into the sand. The EU/Eurozone economy is already such an economy, we won't need any reset to become just like them again, just to wait 2 or 3 years while Labour strut their funky stuff. The private sector ceases to be the economy's engine, it is at best a trailer. All in all, a disaster for wealth creation and a guarantee that the UK and EU/Eurozone economies come into lockstep with one another in a form of three-legged race in which we all fall further behind the sprinting and unencumbered United States of America. Rachel Reeves will squander your cash and shackle the UK to Brussels. Where can we all get a green card? Speaking last week, Ms. Reeves said, "At Davos I've been telling some of the world's biggest investors that the UK is a safe bet for their investments, whether that's in London or Leeds. And in our mission for growth, it's critical that we are growing every region's local economy, that's why we are doing things differently. Those with local knowledge and skin in the game are best placed to know what their area needs. And our transformative reforms will put local leaders at the center of a network that will connect them with investment opportunities, bringing wealth and jobs to their communities." Here is a summary of Internet users' reactions. There is now a broad economic consensus that leaving the EU is the main reason for our dire economic performance since 2019. Labour, having inherited a very poisoned puppy, will have to sail through very choppy waters as it slowly drags us out of the Tory-made growth trap as the pattern of very low growth since 2019 continues apace. Planning for the medium and long term is the correct strategy after 14 years with no coherent strategy other than tax cuts for the rich. But Labour must survive in the short term to ensure its bold strategy for solid economic growth is followed through. Above all, Reeves must now ensure constancy of purpose by sticking to the knitting. Difficult challenges lie ahead, but Labour must differentiate itself from the ludicrous pattern of chopping and changing during 14 years of Tory misrule that prompted one City analyst to describe the constant changes as our new national sport. He pointed to 11 Tory economic strategies, 10 business secretaries, 7 chancellors, and joked then there was Boris Johnson. History tells us that long-term prosperity is achieved only when governments have a well-thought national strategic plan that delivers for all and not just for the rich. That was never going to happen under the right-wing Tory-Etonian elite administration. But it presents a golden opportunity for the Chancellor to shine by totally reversing 14 years of policy designed to serve the rich with no regard to the negative impact such policies have for economic growth and the welfare of the vast majority of people. The Chancellor's bold new strategy is just the ticket. It will take time, but now we can all look forward to a newly prosperous GB before the end of this Parliament. Remember when Brown lost the election in 2010, Terry's no money left. Well, when Labour go it will all happen again. Reeves is using your pension money on projects that will not be completed until 2030s or not go ahead at all and will need private funding when Labour are so insistent on nationalisation, not an incentive to invest. Gordon Brown's famous raid on the UK's pension funds raised over £5 billion a year by abolishing the dividend tax credit that pension funds enjoyed at the time, and it's happening again. One of the worst scenarios. While state pension is being threatened, smaller pensions mean people are more likely to fall back on state benefits. Reeves was a complaints support manager at O's, obviously not as economist. I bought a holiday villa in Paphos in 2001. Cyprus didn't join the EU until 2004, but under the EU I have seen a run on the banks in 2012 where investors' money was taken to bail out the country and Cyprus was classed as gunk. The same happened to Greece. The EU damages everything it touches. It will do the same to Britain again. Rachel and her grandiose and impractical ideas. I thought Labour was for the people, about equality and making life better for all. They are here for 4 years and are missing all the golden opportunities to do what is much needed. They could also be usefully employed during their time in updating and streamlining a very archaic, inefficient and extremely wasteful government and parliamentary system and every one of its government's offices. Although they may not be the right people who can be trusted to do this, like many actions and reforms, it would also need to be a cross-party collaborative effort. I find these constant references to the US economy leaping ahead rather fascinating. Why? Well, that isn't the whole story. Why is happening is a diversion of taxpayer money into funding corporate tax breaks and enriching the few at the expense of the many. Add in the lack of funding for public services and infrastructure and you quickly achieve the oligarch's paradise that more sensible people reject. The inevitable longer-term outcome is a feudal-like, impoverished, miserable, and unequal society. Thank goodness that in Europe at least, there is a better balance, for now. Increased growth? Rise in has seen many people lose their jobs and many more to come after March. This £21 billion black hole since they have come in has increased tenfold. It's not monopoly the government are playing with, it's people's lives. Using people pension plan money to prop themselves up is a bad idea. This happened years ago and hundreds of people lost their pensions. You cannot play with other people's money. Ask them first if they want to take the risk. I'll know what Elle would say. They have got themselves into a hole and do not know how to get out of it. Oh, let's go back to Brussels. Give them billions of pounds. Germany and France, Italy and Spain are virtually bankrupt. Don't forget Greece. We are on the edge. The country is going under too, as far too much money being sent abroad and not shoring up our country.